All right, here we go. This is the RR Show. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you share with your friends and whoever else you want to, because we have fun on this show. It's Vince and, just reading fun stories off of Reddit. Glad you're there. We're going to be doing some from Malicious Compliance. We got some good stuff from Tales from the Front Desk and r/TIFU. So let's jump into this episode right now. Our first story is coming from r/TIFU, posted by user Vegetable Tomato 764. TIFU by canceling my roommate's favorite TV show. This didn't happen today, but many, many years ago when I was in college. My roommate was obsessed with one particular TV show, which I was also a fan of, but he was very into it. He joined different forums and groups about it. He participated in chat rooms about it. He was obsessed. At the time, it was up in the air as to whether or not the show would be canceled. So, being an immature 19-year-old, I decided to have a little fun. I recently found out about this service that would distribute anyone's article for free. Knowing that my roommate had alerts set up for everything to do with this show, I was fairly certain that if anyone was going to see what I was about to do, it would be him. I wrote up an article announcing the cancellation of the show. I started it off with making it sound very official and professional, then deliberately threw in some bizarre statements into the article, things that would never appear in any official announcement. I looked it over, sent it in, and promptly forgot about it. The next morning, I got up, jumped in the shower, and started getting ready for class. I heard my roommate shout. I walked back into the room and I asked what's going on. My roommate looked devastated. They canceled it. They actually canceled it. They're idiots. I asked him why they'd done that. He proceeded to read the rest of the article out loud. As he reached the bizarre statements, he got a confused look on his face, held his hands towards the screen, and what the hell is this crap, he said. I burst out laughing, and my roommate realized he'd been had. He shook his head. You're an ass. Seriously, dude? How did you even get that out there? We had a good laugh about it. He vowed to get me back, and I went off to class. Later that day, I walked into our dorm, and my roommate had a huge grin on his face. Congratulations, dude. You're famous, he said happily. What did you do? I asked. Oh, I didn't do anything, he replied. This is all you're doing. He sent me a link and told me to open it up. The link opened up to a post on one of the fan forums of the show. The subject was the show's cancellation, and the post was a direct copy of my fake article. Below, people were reacting with devastation and pure outrage at the network's decision to cancel the show. They had overlooked the bizarre statements and had taken the fake article as official cancellation of the show. I couldn't believe that it spread this far. I read page after page of devastated fans mourning the demise of their favorite show. And then the mood shifted. The creator of the show posted on the forum after he was contacted by several fans. The post was along the lines of, well, I hope we're not canceled because I'm at the office and working. Now I'm fielding phone calls from my writers asking if they still have jobs. Ugh. My roommate burst out laughing. Keep reading, they said. As I continued to read, the tide of the comments turned from angry at the network to angry at whatever effing F-head decided to pull this stunt. These people were out for my blood. They talked about tracking me down and beating the crap out of me. That was when I learned that my roommate was far from the most devoted fan. At least, she found it was funny. They wrote to both the network and the show creator, encouraging them to serve paperwork on the service I used to release the article in order to find out my IP, which would have traced to the college and likely resulted in disciplinary, if not legal action against me. I spent the next 2 months thinking I was going to get expelled or arrested. Meanwhile, my roommate just laughed at me every time I got anxious and told me it served me right. The following month, the fake article was referenced by TV Guide and is still mentioned on both the IMDb and Wikipedia pages for the show. As for me, well, I haven't spoken about this in many years, and I'm still choosing to use a throwaway because my regular account has a bit too much me on it. Edit. Just woke up to see that someone guessed correctly that it was Veronica Mars. This happened in 2006. My comments may still need manual approval, so I don't know if they're showing up, but as promised, I can confirm that it was Veronica Mars, and Rob Thomas joined the Television Without Pity forums to confirm the show was not canceled. The forums are since defunct, so the link on the page is dead, but here is where it was. We'll put the link in the show notes for you. The next story is coming from r/Tales from the Front Desk, posted by user Tony the Critic. Sir, you're being scammed. It's absolutely true that fooling someone is much easier than convincing them they're being fooled. I'm the night auditor at a very nice resort hotel. This very congenial gent arrives very early Saturday morning and asks if he can check in right away rather than in the afternoon. He's had a long drive, he'd like to settle in, then book a massage before heading out for his meeting. Shows his ID, everything seems fine, but he wants to pay the security deposit cash. We usually take $100 on a credit card, but for cash it's $200 each night. Guy never wavers. Just whips out a wad. I know I shouldn't have, but I have to ask. Why not use a credit card? I mean, that's a red flag for me. His booking was made through a third party. We already have the virtual credit card from them, so I know I won't have a problem with payment, but still red flag, you know. Well, the gent says his bank is blocking his accounts because he deposited a large check that they say is suspicious. Come again? Well, he received a check from an online broker who represents a painter who spotted his photo on Facebook and wants to use his face for a portrait that will be displayed at the Louvre. The Louvre, the one in France. I mean, sir, it's called a Muse scam. It's a very common scam. That check is bogus. No, it's legit. I looked at it, really. Setting aside that no one uses checks anymore except for scammers, did they, by any chance, ask you to send part of it, like $400 to the artist himself for supplies? Well, yeah, he has to get supplies to do the work. Oy vey. Well, I'm happy for you that you're getting such easy money from a complete stranger. I used to work as a fraud analyst for a major bank, and I dealt with hundreds of people who fell for that scam. But I'm happy that in your case, it's really, really, really real. Money for nothing and your chicks for free is the general gist of what I said with much less sarcasm, because I'm a night auditor in a resort hotel and know a quick stop clerk. Saturday night, guy was having many drinks in the lobby, spotted me settling in for a night shift, and he came over to say hi. So, sir, how'd it go with the bank? Did you manage to get your money? You know what? Turns out the check was fake. You don't say. I have to admit, part of me was wondering if the guy was pranking me because it was all too ridiculous. Who falls for that scam anymore? But when he told me the check was fake, he looked genuinely dejected about having fallen for it. Hey, we all fall for a dirty trick at some point. You live and learn, all right? The next story is coming from r/malicious compliance. It's posted by user Caltastic84. Shut my mouth and do what I was told? Absolutely. When I was in college, I worked as a baker for a well-known regional bagel and sandwich chain. At some point, an assistant manager transferred to my store who was the stereotypical, petty, power-tripping, ridiculous manager you find in this kind of job. Her specialty was yelling at and berating employees in front of customers. I will never not believe that she enjoyed publicly humiliating people. It was tolerable until I agreed to cover a shift at the store she transferred from. Someone there asked me what I thought of her. I thought I was careful as I just commented that she had a very high expectation, which was hard for some people to meet. Understatement of the year. Well, this lovely person passed this back to her, which shot me to the top of her list. What followed was a series of write-ups for egregious violations like missing some seeds when mopping the floor, or not emptying a garbage can that had a single paper towel in it. Lucky for me, I was one of the few people there certified to run the ovens. My opportunity for malicious compliance came one Saturday lunchtime when a charter bus pulled up. I've seen this before and knew that a bus full of people buying sandwiches is equivalent to 2 to 3 people bringing bagels to work. Barely a blip compared to morning rush. I went to the counter to help, and Miss Assistant Manager yells at me to get back into the kitchen and start baking more. I tried to tell her that we were fine, but as soon as I opened my mouth, she yelled, "Shut your mouth and do what I told you, and don't stop baking until I say stop." 2 important things to know is first, when I took my certification test, they told me I passed it with the second fastest time on record for the local franchise. The second thing is that the ovens were adjustable. You could turn up the heat to speed up the cooking process. I went back to the baking area and cranked up the ovens and baked as fast as I possibly could. The ovens had 8 shelves, holding about 48 bagels each. Eventually, I had them all filled up and was only gated by how fast they could cook, and I could send them up front. And Ms. Assistant Manager was down at the register this whole time and was not paying attention to the stock levels in the bagel bins. I kept bringing out shelf after shelf. At one point, the bins were overflowing, so I had to start putting them in extra bins we kept in the back. Once those were full, I started putting them on metal trays. The crowd finally died down, and Ms. Assistant Manager finally looks at the bagel bins and realizes she never told me to stop. She asked me if there was anything still baking, and I informed her that every shelf was full. She lost it and started yelling that I was getting fired until multiple people started pointing out that I did exactly what she asked. The store manager ended up coming in, and pretty much everyone told them the exact same story. Ms. Assistant Manager had to bag up all the mountains of excess bagels and drive them to all the other stores in the area so they wouldn't go to waste. Even after that, we still exceeded the allowed wastage for the day, and she was reprimanded. She still yelled at everyone after that, but she was at least more careful in her wording. All right, moving right along in this episode, we have got this one from r/malicious compliance, posted by user Infinite Salary 5861. Sorry, sir, you can't enter your building. A few years ago, I worked armed security at a hospital. The Greater Health System owned 3 large hospitals, each with a 24-hour trauma center. It had a couple smaller county hospitals and dozens of clinics scattered across 3 states. I worked at one of the bigger hospitals in a bad part of town. There were legitimate security threats on a daily basis here. One day I was told to stand at the main entrance and keep staff out. Huh? Apparently, some middle management person wrote a new policy that staff members are to enter and exit the building through the west entrance only. The main entrance was to be used by patients and guests, and they didn't want employees cluttering the main entrance, because God forbid people see medical staff upon entering a hospital. My task was to stand at the door and tell nurses, doctors, cafeteria staff, facilities, janitors, etc. to use the west entrance. Anyone who refused had their name written down and would be reprimanded later. Now, I had other things to worry about, like EDPs, fighting other people in the ER, or people running onto the helipad and taking a selfie with the life flight patient, or dudes on PCP yelling at the wheelchairs, or the old woman with dementia who wandered off and can't find a room. You know, actual security problems. The main entrance posting was a waste of my time. And it dragged on for several days. Until one day. A man wearing a suit, leading a gaggle of important people, all in business attire. The ringleader had an employee ID badge and was speaking enthusiastically to the group. They were heading straight for the main entrance. Me. Sorry, folks, gotta use the west entrance. Ringleader. What? Hospital policy, all employees must use the west entrance. We're going to use this entrance, as he points toward the door. Okay, but I'll need to take your names down. Your supervisor will be informed. Ringleader stares at me like the biggest idiot alive and holds his ID badge in front of my face for an uncomfortably long time. I took his name down and every single member of his gaggle with painful slowness. I should add they were all very polite. Shortly after, the security supervisor arrives. Supervisor, how's it going? Me? Not bad. I have a dozen or so names and I show him the list. Supervisor. Is that? He points to the ringleader's name. Me. I don't know, his badge said Chief something officer. He looked important. Supervisor. Chief Executive Officer? Me, yeah, I think that's it. Supervisor quickly walks away. It turns out the CEO of the health system was bringing a group of potential investors, the aforementioned gaggle, for a tour of the place. He was never informed of the main entrance policy change and was greatly embarrassed to be stopped at the entrance of his own hospital by some rent-a-cop. Suddenly, as if by magic, staff could use the main entrance again, and I could return to actual security work. The final story in this episode is coming from r/malicious compliance, posted by user Yakusaka. You authorized it, take the fall. So I work in complaints for a major telecom operator. Yes, I got promoted since my last post here. And we are swamped. We're working in crisis mode as we don't have enough people to do what we need to do. And every complaint that isn't solved in 15 days, one way or another, accrues fines from the regulator. Now, in crisis mode, we just auto-approve small claims as it's cheaper than the fines for being late. I get a huge claim on my desk, easily 100 times or more than the fine for being late. It's 14 days old. I go to my supervisor, but he says it's too big for him. He can't authorize it, and he thinks it'd be cheaper to take the fine and work out everything in due time. But I'll check with his supervisor and get back to me. Fine. I go back to work, doing other cases for the rest of the day. Next day, my supervisor boss comes to me, asking me why that particular case is on the 15th day. So I tell him, he's furious. Everything should be approved. It's crisis mode. We can't allow to be fined and so on. So I ask him to authorize it, saying once more it's 100 times more than the fine would be. He says he doesn't care and he'll authorize it. I say it needs to be investigated. Once more, he says he'll authorize it. Now, for some clarification, his bonus is reliant on the cases. Fewer late cases, more bonus. So I say fine, sign here, and he does. I process it and forget about it. Come the end of the month, there's a huge commotion. Sector director is in my supervisor boss's office, yelling like there's no tomorrow. I get called in, and the issue is that case. And the jerk who authorized it is trying to throw me under the bus. It turns out it was a fraudulent complaint, and we had to investigate before making a decision. Sector director just asks who authorized it. I bring him the signed papers that I sent. A few days later, the boss gets the sack. Gee, I wonder why. So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.